and welcome to History Pitch number 3. I'm Tamson Pietsch and I have a great gaggle of teammates in the studio with me today, including Arthur Toomer, who we are going to interview. But what else have we got on the go? We've got Sam Aylett talking about local vintage. We have Erika Hanna back with her fashionable take on London culture. Or London culture and fashion. And we also have the Itinerant poetry librarian, and we'll have to see where she is from at the moment. And we also have Tavinder with Beard and Babe. So, to begin though, Josie McClellan, it's not Josie McClellan, what's your last name? Josie Dorr. Josie McClellan is a historian at Bristol University. So, Josie, what happened today in history? Oh, Mike.
Not a great deal, actually.
It was a boring day in history.
For the most part, yeah. In 1819, George Eliot, the writer of Middlemarch, was born, and then not a great deal happens until 1963, when Kennedy was assassinated.
Okay, except, 2 world wars happened.
Not on that day in history. So
I'm
that
sure
was
some people died on
a
this
boring day.
Okay, so Kennedy is assassinated.
Yeah, and then in 1990, on this day, Margaret Thatcher stepped down from the leadership election. And in 2005, Merkel became the German Chancellor. And in 1995, Toy Story was released as the first feature-length film using computer-generated imagery.
Ooh, what year?
1995.
That is really early.
I guess.
Were you not born then?
No.
No? What do you mean, no?
Well, we were born, but Snow White was produced in the 1920s or 30s, I think.
So you're not using computer animation?
No, that was ordinary animation, but it's still pretty good. So.
Excellent. I think Toy Story is fabulous. I watched it on the plane, the last one, with the bear. Yeah, where he has to grow up. Thank you, Josie. That was enlightening. So, to begin, I think we'll start with Sam Aylett. And I have to apologise for the poor quality of this recording. But here we go. We'll see if we can bring Sam into the picture. Sam, what have you got for us?
Okay, so guys, today I want to focus, last week we focused on a place. Today I want to focus on a person, someone that was a good friend of mine and the family's, and, focus on how people act in heritage, how they have a part to play in heritage. So today I want to talk about a gentleman by the name of Dr. Timothy Fernahoe.
Sorry, what was his name again?
Dr. Timothy Fernahoe.
Fernahoe? Yeah.
Fernahoe, yeah.
And who's he?
He was a lecturer at Brunel. He sadly passed away in 2003. His wife, Anna Fernahoe, she's a friend of the family. But yeah, so Tim was a historian, an African historian.
What did he write about?
He wrote specifically about Ethiopia, pre-revolutionary Ethiopia and colonial Ethiopia. He taught about a lot of other things. The Spanish Civil War and the French Revolution. And I only thought about it the other day. It was his birthday, or it would have been his birthday, on the 18th of November. It would have been 59. And Anna, his wife, came and visited me now to visit some old friends, some lecturers, within a couple of weeks. Yeah, I just thought I'd like to talk about him and his work and what he did.
Okay, so what was his connection? What was he doing when he was here?
So he was a lecturer. I think they were based in the School of Art when he was here. And he started in 1990, where he taught what was the West London Institute of Higher Education, which we all now know as the Brunel, after a lot of the campuses merged. Yeah, so he taught a few undergraduate degree classes. Again, Spanish Civil War, French Revolution, and slavery. And yeah, and he was, from what I gather from his friends and his old colleagues, he was quite a well-loved gentleman and significant in the department. And it's growth is what we enjoy today. I wanted to take the time to reflect, I suppose, on everyone that works in the history department, yourself included. we have such a good history department here, something we all really, really enjoy, and I think this radio show is a good example of how...
History pitch, woo!
History pitch, exactly, yeah. I mean, I talked to a lot of my friends from university, and from various departments, and, I don't want to tread on any toes, but yeah, we have such a good department here, you guys, do all the fun stuff with us.
Yeah, let's not waste this opportunity to big ourselves up a bit and say that we were ranked top, weren't we, in the MSS?
Yeah, absolutely, in the MSS. I think history first and politics third. I think we just scored 100%. Round of applause for the lecturers and ourselves. I guess we did very well.
So coming back to the history of the department and your friend and the kind of connotation of heritage, how are you thinking about that?
I think something to be celebrated. There's a lot of things that happened in the past, I suppose, that we all know about as historians. That whilst it's a common heritage that we should share, some of it's quite difficult. I'm sure we can all think of events in history that are like this. So I suppose I was trying to think of a way we could celebrate part of our local heritage, not so much as Brunel as an institution, but the people who helped make that institution as good as it is today, and they're responsible for how much we can enjoy this institution as part of.
So what was his particular contribution?
As I understand it, the department under a restructuring to come to include history as a degree, as a single honours degree. People now, which they weren't able to before, can now study history. We had a lot of degrees before that, whether they still have them, I'm not 100% sure. So, and he was a significant. He helped facilitate that. So for all of us that can, perhaps study history now. Timothy Fernahoe was someone who let that happen.
So just to put that in context for listeners, what Sam's talking about, I guess, is the process by which universities across England were reformed in the 80s and 90s as part of the Robbins reforms, and a lot of the old institutes of technology were kind of made universities or folded into other universities, and this is part of the process that happened at Brunel. But it's interesting to think how it affects, on-the-ground students, I guess, Sam, and that's what you're talking about, that particular people were really affected by that, and new degrees came out of it, and new departments came out of it, and there hasn't always been a Department of History and Politics at Brunel.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And, it's something that I don't think and I know the students do, and I think, whatever we can talk about in terms of heritage, history, and things like this, I think, sometimes we forget to recognise these things. But, I just wanted to celebrate the history department as a whole.
So you're coming on here on our local vintage section and talking to us about heritage every week. So I wonder if you could just give, to round up this segment, a definition, perhaps, of heritage and how it differs to history or memory.
A definition of heritage. The first time I picked up on heritage as an academic discipline was with Astrid in a Year 3 module.
So we can blame Astrid Svensson?
Astrid Svensson, yeah. Her first lecture was titled "What is Heritage?" And if I could answer that now, then I'm sure the work that I produced would be much better than it is. You know what, heritage, I think is very personal. If we try and get out of our heads with the academic side of it a little bit, I think heritage is a very personal thing, whether it's places, people, whether it's the relationship you have with a place or your religion, heritage is a whole number of things. How it plays out in history, I suppose, is very politicized. But I wouldn't want to give anyone a definition. I'd like.
That is not an A answer to the essay question. That is not. I sent my students an essay question called "What is global history?" my first years, and they all have I don't know, I haven't looked at them yet, but I've received many emails saying, "Tamson, what are you doing?" Okay, Sam, we might give that a C, that answer, but. But thank you very much, Sam Aylett, and we look forward to hearing from you again next week.
Thank you very much,
Sam. That was local vintage. And we're back now in the studio, and I wanted to turn now to Arthur. Hello, Arthur.
Hi.
Hello. It's good to have you here.
Thanks, Tamson.
Now, tell me, Arthur, you are well known around campus. You'll be a familiar sight to many people. You've done how many degrees at Brunel?
I mean, I'm on my second one at Brunel. I got a degree at Kingston. I went down there and did a master's in children's literature, writing for children.
But now you're back?
Now I'm back doing a degree in history.
Excellent, first year history. And you are unique amongst the first year students, I think, because you were actually born before the Second World War.
Yeah, afraid so.
Afraid so? Do you mind telling us which year you were born in? You don't have to. You don't have to.
Well, you can. You obviously, the fact that I'm going to talk about being an evacuee, it's pretty obvious, really, that when I was born.
So, listeners, you have to extrapolate. You have to extrapolate and count backwards. But we want to talk about your experiences as an evacuee during the Second World War.
Okay.
So you were in London, were you, as a child growing up?
No, Southampton.
Southampton.
But the big thing was that there was a belief that the bomber will always get through. No, it wasn't really true. But we were I was, and plenty of other people were evacuated twice. First time was 1939, as soon as the outbreak of war was declared. And
you were evacuated to where?
That time I went down to Bournemouth, where my grandmother had a house and a beach hut, which was lovely for me.
Beach holiday. So you went to one of your relations?
Yeah, so I was very, very lucky. And then that was because people thought Southampton would be bombed. But in actual fact, the bombing didn't occur. It was what was called a phony war. Nothing very much happened.
Can we just give a bit of context? I mean, Southampton is the big shipping centre and a naval centre, wasn't it?
But no, Portsmouth was a naval centre. That wasn't 20 miles away. But Southampton was a prime passenger port.
Right. So a target for raiders.
Yeah. It was a legitimate target.
Right, yeah, and so you went, and did you come back then from Bournemouth later after the end of 1939?
Yeah, we didn't stay I didn't stay in Bournemouth very long. But then the second evacuation was totally different. That was in 1940 because everybody believed then that the south of England, the Germans would invade. And people generally thought the Germans were going to come over and invade, which, was a miracle that they didn't do because there wasn't much to stop them. And the south of England would have become a battleground, so people were shunted all over the place. I mean, I went down to Devon, on the middle of Dartmoor, a little tiny village.
And how were you allocated a place to stay?
Well, sheer luck, because my father had a sort of second or third cousin who, with her husband, was running a pub in a little village called Holne.
Okay.
And we went there. My mother, who had never done any work, but I mean, she'd never had to work, but she went behind a bar. And funnily enough, when she was older, she said, I really enjoyed it.
Yeah. I mean, this is a common experience for women, isn't it? That there's a degree of liberation in working.
It certainly was,
the war. And so you were with your mother and your siblings as well, or just the two of you?
I had a little sister.
Yeah. So you went as a kind of family unit.
Yeah. But I mean, the ones I felt sorry for, when we arrived there, 30 children came down from the East End of London. And to them, it was absolutely a horrific experience. I mean, I saw them out crying in the road and things. It was a totally different culture to what they were used to.
And I guess they were there without their parents as
well.
Yeah,
they were, yeah. And they were, the terrible, I think in retrospect the government made a mistake because they forced people to take in evacuees. Now, I think if they had said, you've got to be patriotic, these people's fathers and brothers are fighting for your country, you should do your bit and take them in voluntarily. Well, I think quite a few people would have done. But forcing them made them resented.
So you think people's experiences of being evacuees were actually wildly different? You seem
Oh, very, very different, yeah. Now, there was a lady in this village called Hone, called Mrs. Cook Earl. Now, she was an aristocrat of the sort of old school almost, and she had married Mr. Cook Earl in 1914, just before the outbreak of the First World War. And he, like millions of others, volunteered for the army, went out, and first action he saw, he got killed. Now, she would have loved to have had children, and when the war came, she took in evacuees willingly, and the ones that were with her were lucky. They had a better time than if they were with their own parents. You know, she really was a mother to them. And after the war, I understand that some of them still kept in touch with her.
Were you one of the ones? Did you visit her house too?
I went to her house, yeah, and she gave up a field for us to play in. At Christmas, she organised a party, and everybody got a present. You know, so she really was wonderful to us.
And did you then associate with the other child evacuees, those from London and perhaps other places?
Oh, very much so, yeah.
You were in school together, you played together.
And I mean, school was this was a little village with a normal population of 300. And the village school was tiny, so we were sent out to do lessons in a barn which was built in, I think, it was about 400 years old. It had walls about that thick, and you know, it was pretty grim. But
so, did you remember that there was a big difference between when, you know, as a child, did there seem to be a big difference between the town that you'd grown up in and this rural country setting?
Yeah, definitely.
What do you remember marking that difference the most?
Well, I mean, a car was you know, you could play in the street with, you know, I mean, there were one or two cars, but not very many. You know, most people had a bicycle.
So transportation. What about the daily rhythms of life? Were you collecting eggs and that sort of
Yeah,
thing?
shortage of food was a very big thing.
In the country as well as the city?
Oh, it was far worse in the city. I mean, in the country, there were, you know, eggs, you know, you could get hold of. And in the town, there was a black market, for sure. I mean, my father, when we went back, he was friendly with a guy who was a butcher, I think. Now, my father was a director of the football club, so he got the butcher tickets for football. You know, he sat in the director's box, but then he expected the butcher to bring in some meat or something.
So this informal economy that's happening underneath the rationing system.
Yeah.
Everyone's got a peddling scheme going on.
But, I mean, it's left its mark on me. I'm very friendly with a German. When I was just running marathons, I used to stay with him in Germany, and he'd come and stay with me. And we both said the same thing, that nowadays our children open a tin of beans, tip them up into whatever they're going to cook them in, and they probably leave 10 beans still in a can, and then they throw it away. Whereas he never does that, and nor do I, and it makes us cross to think. But that is a throwback from my childhood, when you didn't waste a blooming thing. You know, you ate the crusts and everything.
So there's like preciousness of resources that you
definitely
still value.
Yeah.
You dropped a tantalising comment there about when you used to run marathons.
Yeah.
You used to run marathons.
Yeah, I ran 101 marathons, and ITV made a film.
Did they?
Yeah.
What's the film called, so we can look it up?
I honestly don't know the name of the film.
Oh, you do? But
I don't want to see. I know this sounds stupid, but I can't run marathons now. Well, you know, I could cover 26 miles slowly on foot. And in some ways, I prove that Freud was right, because I dream a lot, and in my dreams, I'm running marathons again.
And it's a sense of freedom in your dreams? Is it an enjoyable running? You know, sometimes we run in dreams.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a wish fulfillment, really, to be able to do it again.
Yeah. And do you do, I mean, I go for very small runs, not nowhere near approaching marathon length.
No, but you could do. If you all you need to do is slowly build up. Okay, say you run a mile this week, then next week you run a mile and a half, and then you just creep up and up and up. But when you can run 20 miles, then you know you'll do the full 26 in the marathon.
Okay. So you say you can... But people talk about hitting the kind of zone where you don't feel any pain anymore. Is that true? Is that mythic?
You can feel pain. Your feet are sore. You got blisters and things.
Okay, so you're really selling it. But that's 101 marathons. That's remarkable. So, Arthur, it's been lovely to talk to you. I think we could probably get you back and we could talk about all manner of things. So maybe we'll see you again. But for now, I want to reintroduce our very good friend, Erika Hanna, who is back. Let us see how this technology is going to work. Erika, are you there?
Okay.
Hello, Erika Hanna.
Hello, Tamson Pietsch.
Welcome to History Pitch.
Hello, thanks for having me back.
Third time running. You know, you're our most regular contributor.
I should hope so. I'd hope more often than Simon.
Yes, and possibly the most popular. However,
Excellent.
We'll let Simon contest that. So, what are we doing? Culture review. What have you got this week?
Okay, well, this week I want to tell you about my trip to London because it has a theme to it as well. Ooh. So, I spent a week in London this week. And I went to an arts gallery and I did some research and all of it was about photography. So I'm going to tell you about photography.
Oh, please do. Okay, so we've got art gallery, we've got research and we've got photography. Which art gallery and what did you see?
I went to an exhibition at the National Gallery called Seeing Through Art about the relationship between painting and photography. And I'd highly recommend it, actually, to all your listeners.
And is it a historical relationship? So it goes back to the 19th century?
Yeah, exactly. It's from the 19th century to the present day. Do you want to know what I wore?
Oh, please.
I think that's important. Because I was in London and I was trying to look cultured, in inverted commas, I wore all black with brown accessories. So,
Erika, I know you well, and you wear all black in locations other than London.
But this time I was pointed. So I was trying to look like, you know, a member of the chattering class with the intelligentsia or something. And the other nice thing about going to the exhibition, can I say, is I went on my own. And actually doing culture on your own is fantastic sometimes because I didn't have to worry about, you know, going at the same pace as another person. So...
Yes, anxiety, performance anxiety. But I think we moved too swiftly on from your attire. So let's just pause briefly. And did you have like a roll neck sweater on as well?
No, I didn't actually have a roll neck sweater. I think I'd be trying too much to look like Foucault. And, you know, you've always got to temper these things. Or Sartre, he was the other one who loved roll necks, wasn't he?
Ladies and gentlemen, listeners, dear listeners, all two of you, we have to tell you that Erika is not bald. Neither does she wear glasses.
No, I do have hair, unlike some people. So, no, it was just a nice black jumper, but it was quite a nice knit. So I think that was important, even though it wasn't
splash of colour? Was there any splash of colour?
No.
None. Oh, okay.
Okay, so on to the exhibition. It was interesting. It was organised by genre. So actually, they did landscape, portraiture, the body, and sort of historicist art, and compared and contrasted photography and painting in each of them. And there were some really, really interesting ones about some 19th century historic art and how the whole... how it could only really have been done. Some of these very, very complex, large allegorical painting. It could only have been done because of the invention of photography. So the artists were working from photographs of models because it's much easier to paint from photographs because, you know, the images have already been flattened, it's already been rendered 2D. So it showed a much more complex link between photography and art, I think, than people often acknowledge.
Yeah, we might intuitively think that photographers were being influenced by the art that they were responding to, but actually you're talking about a mutual constitution of photography and art.
Exactly. Like, I don't know. I'd always been told that things like impressionists came out of photography because once you can render things, sort of realistic, in inverted commas, there's no need for realism in art. So you start getting things like abstract art. But that's actually quite a clunky relationship. But this is actually showing something much more sophisticated. And you're right, like a mutual relationship. So an awful lot of early photography is actually very, very conservative, and it seeks to reproduce older genres and sort of create, get an authority through almost like aping painting modes from painting.
So you can really literally see itself trying to establish itself as a kind of legitimate art form.
Exactly, and I think this is a huge problem still for photographers today. Like, most art colleges didn't start teaching photography till the 1980s. It was only taught in technical schools. So I think there's actually a real insecurity around photography that you can trace from the 1830s, from the invention of photography.
That is fascinating, because I went to the Frieze Art Fair with an art dealer friend of mine 2 weeks ago, or whenever it was on. And she was saying that figurative art, particularly photography, has, soared in popularity in the last year or 2 years, particularly since the economic downturn. And
really?
Yeah, there's this return to more conservative modes of depiction, so I wonder if you could index, the popularity of photography and figurative art against economic factors, I don't know, historically, like put consumption of art in its kind of economic and social context.
I have absolutely no idea. Because actually I think that the consumption of photography as art is still fairly minority, isn't it? Like, there's not as many famous photographers as there are famous artists.
We might not I don't know, this is your stuff though, we might not reify them, but we might, middle class consumption or ordinary consumption of photography might actually be higher than elite consumption.
Well, this is interesting, and actually maybe this brings me on to my second point. But how do people consume photographs? Like, most photography people consume is not high art photography. I don't think people massively know what to do with art photography. Most of the way that people consume photography is photographs to very quickly tell stories, like, the main photograph on the front page of every newspaper. This is how you take in photographs, or like family snaps, that sort of thing.
I mean, family snaps is part of your research project, is it?
Yes. It is. So, should I tell them what I'm working on?
Oh, do, yeah.
I'm working on practices of photography throughout the 20th century. So, I'm basically looking at everything that isn't art photography. I'm looking at how the changes in photographic technologies shape people's experiences, both within the domestic civil society and how they engage with the state. So, looking at things like family photographs, looking at how photographs are used within newspapers and things, and then looking at the moment, the state's role, how the state understands photography in things like legal processes. Ooh. So this is does that make any sense?
Yes.
Sorry. This week I was actually looking at photographs of violence in the early Troubles in Northern Ireland, in the archive, which is great, very interesting.
So literally you're interested in how the state sees and how it looks. Yeah. Do you know that book by Scott called Seeing Like a State?
Do you know what? This is hilarious. I love that book. But I never made that connection. You're right. I'm interested in how the state sees. And the state's vision is very ambiguous. It's so interesting. Like, judges don't know what to do with photographs. And they sit there while people argue over what photographs depict and whether photographs are doctored or whether they're not and things. And then usually they don't even use them when they take them into account, evidence into account. I think actually photographs are interesting because they sort of constantly reinforce the sort of malleability of truth right there, It's always contested and contingent with photographs. And they're always used as evidence, but then they're always kind of rejected as well.
Right, so this verisimilitudinous aspect of photography, that's a big word to say. You know, the way we think, you know, we were talking earlier about photographs as depicting reality, you know, and thereby perhaps rendering other forms of art unnecessary. But actually, that's a very complicated notion at the time.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, so just to inform your listeners, rather, this week I was looking at photographs of violence and trouble. So in particular, I was looking at photographs of the Battle of the Bogside. So it was all the different types of photographs submitted to the tribunals around these, you know, urban violence. So the things like bystanders, photographs they submitted them as evidence. Journalists were there taking photographs that appeared in papers, but then were also in front of the tribunal as evidence. And then the RUC, the police in Northern Ireland, also had photographers who were recording what was going on. And they're very, very striking images, like of stone throwing, of petrol bombs, of riot shields, like, you know, very, very graphic images of violence. The type of thing you actually, I never thought would be part of a judicial process, actually. So I've been thinking about, I'm not going to try and say the word again, I've been thinking about how ideas of truth and, you know, judicial truth and, like, justice are thought about, and even ideas of citizenship, and how people are portrayed and understood through photographs this week.
Erika, that's a really cool project. I hope we get to hear instalments of it as it goes on.
Excellent. And one more point, just for the archive, I just wore jeans and a jumper, nothing fancy.
Because it gets quite cold in there. You have to be practical.
Exactly.
Yeah. So, ladies and gentlemen, let us thank Erika Hanna. Thank you, Erika.
Thank you.
And we look forward to talking to you next week. 4 in a row, I hope.
Yeah, bye.
Bye. Yay for Erika. And back now to the studio. Arthur Toomer's got a few parting shots for us, I think. Arthur, you were going to tell us a story.
Yeah. Well, this is the fact that when I was evacuated into this little village on Dartmoor, there was no likelihood, really, of the Germans coming there, I shouldn't think. There was nothing much for them. But there was a yard, and it was just like Dad's army, because the people used to meet there with their arms, their arms that they had to hold off the German army were pitchforks and rip hooks and things like that. So they couldn't have held back a Roman army, let alone a Nazi army. But they were known as the local defence volunteers, and to local people that stood for look, duck and vanish. They later became the Home Guard. And they did get a bit better training, and they did, it's just like Dad's army, they did eventually get some pretty antiquated rifles and things.
But the fighting spirit was there.
The spirit was there, yeah.
Thank you very much, Arthur.
Okay.
It's been lovely to talk to you.
Thanks very much,
That's
Tamson.
been great, yeah.
Right.
So, Tavinder. Now, beer or babe, Tavinder?
Hi, Tamson. Well, this week we have a babe. Yay!
Woohoo! Finally.
We have a pattern going now. We've got babe, beard, babe. But so our babe this week is Melita Schiller, who was a German aviatrix.
Ooh, is that what you are if you're a female aviator?
Yeah, you're an aviatrix.
Excellent.
Well, at least during World War II you are.
Uh-huh.
So she was the only the second woman in Germany to qualify as a test pilot.
Ah.
So she's got quite a fantastic career ahead of her. So she started off studying maths, physics, engineering at university, and then she specialised in aeronautical engineering.
Do you know where she was studying?
At the Technical University of Munich.
Ah.
So this is a lovely German woman who was doing all this before the Second World War, during the time of the Nazis, obviously. The Nazis were very aware of her skills and thought she was fantastic. So come Second World War, she's doing all their work for them. Running test flights and testing stuff for the Luftwaffe, and
So I'm kind of glad that Arthur has left the studio because she was probably bombing Southampton.
Well, Well, she was definitely running test flights and testing the aeroplanes for it, so maybe she wasn't quite bombing Southampton. But there's a nice little twist to her story, because she is actually half Jewish.
Ooh.
Yeah, her dad is proper Jewish, maybe not, practicing Jewish, but he has Jewish ancestry. But the family's never arrested because, her war work is just so vital. She's a very important woman to the Nazis. And then in 1937, she marries historian Alexander Schneck-Graf von Stauffenberg.
Schneck-Graf von Stauffenberg.
Who is brother of Klaus von Stauffenberg. Colonel Klaus, you may have heard of him, the dude who tried to bomb Hitler in 1944. Yeah.
So this is part of the conspiracy, the assassination conspiracy.
The assassination attempt codenamed Operation Valkyrie.
Right.
Yeah.
Gosh, so she's a very complicated figure.
She is.
Do you think she's in cohorts with her uncle-in-law, brother-in-law?
Well, Klaus tried to get her to help him out. The original plan was he would set off the bomb that would eventually kill Hitler, and then she would help him escape in an aeroplane, and he would get out of the way completely straight away. But, plan never got around to it because she wasn't able to get a plane to
But she was
take him.
sort of participating.
She knew about it, but not participating hugely, but, that didn't matter to the Nazis.
So
when the plan, was foiled, when Klaus von Stauffenberg was found out, the entire Stauffenberg family was arrested, including Melita, her husband, Klaus's kids, everyone.
And where did they finish the war then?
Well, they all ended up in internment camps, in prison camps. But Melita, yet again, her awesome skills, help her out, and she's freed from prison within a couple of months. And she's back doing test flights.
What an aviatrix.
know.
What is the moral of the story for us ladies?
Well, get your education and you can do all you like.
Yeah, exactly. Knowledge is power.
Yeah, knowledge is power. So, but, she has a rather sad end.
Oh no, don't
rather
kill
sad
her.
end.
What happens? She gets married. Is that what happens?
She's already married into the Stauffenberg family. So many of you may know that the war ends pretty soon after Hitler commits suicide on 20th April in 1945. But poor Melita is shot down in her plane on the 8th of April.
Oh no.
Oh. And, official story goes that the Americans shot her down, but official story.
What?
The Gestapo may have had some involvement.
Think it was own fire. Is that is there any historical evidence for that whatsoever?
There is some, because, her husband, Alexander, afterwards went with the official story and said, no, it was the Americans, but then it's questionable.
Okay.
Yeah.
And am I right in thinking there's no beard behind this babe?
No. She's completely independent, although, Alexander's there, but he only comes along when she's, 37? And she's been doing all this great war work, great flying, by herself beforehand, and even though that she's half Jewish, her skills save her and her family.
So this speaks, so we got two takeaways from this, right? Mm-hmm. Finish your degrees, people. Finish your degrees. And two, identity is complex.
It is.
We make complex. Okay, thank you, Tavinder. Oh, one more. Oh, no, History Society news
I have announcements. History Society announcements. So next week, for all you lovely people studying history, we have Careers Workshop happening on Wednesday, 28th of November, happening from 2 to 4 in LCO 68. LCO68. Dr. Martin Foley will be giving a talk on postgrad degrees. Do you want to do a master's? Come along.
Yeah, come along. You can get more of me and Alison Carroll, who's just walked into the room.
Hello.
Hello, Alison Carroll. Okay, so we're going to move now to the Itinerant Poetry Librarian to find out where she is in the world.
The Itinerant Poetry Librarian.
Hi there, listeners. It's the Itinerant Poetry Librarian, and I'm here today with a valued non-patron of the library, a.k.a.
Stella Wisdom.
And Stella, where are you from exactly?
I work at the British Library in London.
Aha, and can you tell us a little bit more then about the British Library?
Well, where do I start? The British Library is formed from the library that was in the British Museum, which was founded in 1753.
Right, because at some point now we have a separate British Library, but actually back in the day, the British Museum and the British Library were in effect the same entity, right?
Yep, and even when the British Library became its own entity in 1973, it still had its main reading room in the British Museum, in the round reading room, up until 1997. And many of our current readers who come in were readers when the reading room was the round reading room. The collection was originally formed from 3 collections, the Cotton Collection, the Harley Collection and the Sloane Collection.
So that's Sir Hans Sloane, right?
Sir Hans Sloane, yes. And obviously we've been collecting legal deposit. We're one of the UK's legal deposit libraries, so we take in a copy of everything published in the UK.
Which must be a vast task.
Yes, and I know with our printed serials, even in the days, even now with e-journals, we take in 6,000 printed serial items each week.
Unbelievable.
Which is obviously causes an issue for our
a little
post
bit of a
room.
space issue.
Exactly,
perhaps.
exactly. So people who say that print is dead, well, it's not dead yet. The St Pancras building that I work in was opened in 1997. It's a very impressive building next to St Pancras Station. Got several reading rooms, humanities, rare books, science. We've also got a business and intellectual property centre, which many people don't know about, and we give lots of advice to people wanting to start up their own business. And there's also meeting room spaces, so we get people in to give workshops at an affordable rate, or people can book them to use as meeting space for working on their business or inventions.
Right, so the library's kind of moved through history into a new realm of, what's relevant for the needs of people today, which is not surprising. But perhaps, Stella, you can tell us about your role in particular at the library.
Yeah, it's interesting for me because I'm on my 3rd job at the library now, and I started off as a storage and preservation manager, which was a very traditional sort of library job. I'm now a digital curator.
And digital curator, what exactly might that be?
Well, that's working with our born digital collections and also digitised collections where we digitise whether it's audio-visual material or print material. I'm working on several projects at the moment, but one of my passions is web archiving. We've got the UK Web Archive at the British Library.
So what's different in terms of what your project is archiving and, let's say, for instance, the Way Back When machine, which the Internet Archive is responsible for, which is obviously archiving the entire web?
Yes. At the moment, with the UK Web Archive, we're trying obviously to have a UK focus, and we've been collecting themed collections that we curate to make them easily discoverable. So I've been leading a project called Curator's Choice, where I've been involving 8 of my colleagues who are the subject specialists, and they've all been curating a collection of their choice.
Right, so which different kind of subjects?
This is a bit of an exclusive, but within the next month we're about to launch 2 of these Curator's Choice collections. One's on slavery and abolition in the Caribbean, and the other one is about oral history resources in the UK. I've been also curating 2 collections of my own, one about video game culture and one about library history.
Right, and just so our listeners are clear, when we talk about web archiving, what exactly are we meaning?
We harvest websites. There's some strange jargon used for web archiving. With my curators, we select websites and then we decide how frequently we want them to be harvested. So if it's a website that's being updated very frequently, we might set it hourly or daily. If it's a website that's hardly updated at all, we might set it to be twice a year or once a year. What people can then do is they can then use a timeline to see how this website changes over time, which I think obviously when the web was shiny and new, people didn't appreciate how websites would change over time.
And also just literally be completely lost.
Exactly.
So
they're
you're
very
kind of hosting
ephemeral.
the information that may also, in some instances, in the future, no longer exist in its original, web-hosted place.
Exactly. One of the appeals about web archiving is websites are ephemeral. They are like leaflets and posters and pamphlets.
And a leaf in the street.
Exactly like that. We try to harvest sites before company goes bust. So with my video game collection, I tried urgently to collect the game for the store game before they closed. Also, websites can change ownership, organisations can change name, can change URLs. If a website's hosting organisation changes or the URL changes, and we have to be up to speed on that to update our crawlers.
Right.
We have web crawlers.
Which might seem to some people kind of a bit irrelevant, but actually when you think about it, for those future seekers of information who might be having to do research and find evidence relating to how business has changed over time, the legal structure and framework, then this type of evidence that you're collecting, you know, the primary research data, if you like, is going to be incredibly important.
Exactly, and I think this is obviously what we're doing. We are creating a resource for future researchers.
Well, that sounds like you're doing tremendous stuff, valued non-patron. We're very excited to hear about some of the interesting insider details about what goes on in web curation and digital scholarship and digital curation at the British Library. Thank you very much for talking to us. And just one little point, we thought, as we were meeting you, we thought it would be fun to bring along something and find out if you thought you recognised it. For the listeners here, we're just holding up a piece of carpet.
It is a carpet tile.
Does it look at all familiar?
It does. It does.
This would be actually from outside Humanities Room 1 in the British Library.
I'm intrigued. This looks like an artefact in its own...
reclaimed British Library carpet.
Wow.
Well, thank you very much, Stella, and we look forward to visiting the British Library either physically on site over by King's Cross or otherwise on the website, which is
www.bl.uk. Easy as that.
Thanks, Stella. Now, in our role as the itinerant poetry librarian, we're especially keen to bring poetry to the people. As part of this remit, and especially for you, our wonderful listeners, we'll be regularly curating short excerpts from some amazing live poetry, available from the Poetry Center and American Poetry Archives. Now, they're based at San Francisco State University and house one of the largest historic collections of poetry recordings outside of the Library of Congress. The Poetry Center Digital Archives is, in fact, their new online free digital resource, and we've selected a poetic voice from down the ages to play to you. This week's excerpt is from 1957, and by the poet Marianne Moore, discussing and reading her poem, Values in Use.
Excerpts from the archive.
Well, I can't find it isn't very good. Yes, it is. Here it is. I seem to be a great promoter today of myself. This has not appeared anywhere except in the Favor and Favor printing of Like a Bulwark, the Dodger piece, the hometown piece for Messrs. Alston and Rees, and this one, Values in Use, are included in the Favor and Favor, Like a Bulwark. And I was coming home from Alstonborough Hall one evening when a student came up and joined me and said, I'm working on chemistry, but I'm not a writer, but I do read some poetry, and I don't understand all of yours, but I like what I do understand. Well, I said, I was very grateful. I said, no, it isn't your fault, it's my fault for not making it clear. But, as one of the audience last night reminded me, you try to be as clear as your natural reticence allows you to be, and beyond that, you can't be. And so I meant to bring it. This student of chemistry wrote me a piece approving this idea that you must try to be clear even if you don't succeed. And I didn't think to bring it along. And it was not signed. Now, we make such a point of autographing and signing and attributing things. I would like very much to know who wrote that piece. It was a very good one. Well, this is mine, Values in Use. I attended summer school and I liked the place. Grass and locust leaf shadows like lace. Have a great many honey locusts at Harvard. Writing was discussed. They said, we create values in the process of living. Dare to wait their historic progress. Be abstract, and you'll wish it had been specific. It's a fact. What was I studying? Values in use, judged on their own ground. Am I still abstruse? Walking along, a student said offhand, now relevant and plausible were words I understand. A pleasing statement, my anonymous friend, certainly the means must not defeat the end. Now, I think that will do.
Literary Lowdown of the Week. Did you know that the Bodleian Libraries in Oxford hold over 25,000 ballad sheets, which are accessible online through the Bodleian Broadside Ballads database? To give you a little bit of information, quoting from their website, Broadside Ballads, printed on single sheets from the 16th to 20th centuries, contain words and images once displayed and sung daily in Britain's streets and inns. Although part of living traditions of folk song, popular art and literature, these illustrated printed sheets are now rare and preserved in only a few libraries. Well, we took a look at the Broadside Ballads database and did a quick keyword search. We picked the keyword cheese, as it's a particularly important word for us, and we came up with the following results. We did in fact find a broadside ballad called The Cheesemonger's Daughter. There are a number of different subjects it appears to be about, including tradesmen, rivalry and love, and there is another edition also listed which gives us subjects including jealousy and a letter writing. Rather than read the ballad itself in entirety, we'll leave that for you to take a look at on their website, but we will give you just a couple of lines. They go like this. Then he seized a big cheese knife and rushed upstairs, and cheesemonger's daughter he took unawares. Crikey! Who knew cheese could be so dangerous? So if you're interested to find out more and you yourself would like to explore the Broadside Ballads collection, do take a look online. It's at ballads.bodleian.ox.ac.uk.
Thank you to the Itinerant Poetry Librarian. And now for everyone's favourite segment. Is that working? It's not working.
1610. First Great Western service to London Paddington. Calling out.
That's right, it's How British is Tamson. And interrogating me today is Artemis. Hit me, Artemis. You don't have to take this test in approximately 3 weeks.
Okay. So, which statement is correct? There are a small number of jobs where the discrimination laws do not apply, or... I haven't finished!
Okay.
Calm down. Discrimination laws apply to all jobs.
Which ones? Is it multiple choice, or can I...
No, it's A or B.
Say that again.
So A, there are a small number of jobs where the discrimination laws do not apply, or B, discrimination laws apply to all jobs.
A. And the Church of England is one because of the appalling measure just passed by the laity of the General Synod.
No, it's B.
Oh, no, come on.
No, it's A. It's okay. Great, you did great.
Oh, okay, next.
So, which statement is correct? A, in the UK most women have babies in hospital, or B, in the UK most women have babies at home. In the bathtub, it's great.
Under the table. I'm going to go for A.
Yes!
Oh, God.
The other one is probably in the Americas. We'll see.
And that's all? You've only got 2 for me.
I could ask a few more. I have the answers. So.
They're in there.
Let's see. Is the statement below true or false? A prime minister usually resigns when their party loses a general election.
Resigns... well, yeah. Oh, God, that's quite difficult. They don't resign their seat, necessarily, but they resign...
Yeah, it's true or false.
The party. True.
Let's see, wait... yes, it's true. You're going to be a great citizen.
I'm going to be really British. Really British.
Also the rest of us.
Great. Thank you very much, Artemis. I'm inching my way towards legitimacy in this country. Now, that's it for today, I think. Yeah. Thank you very much to our guest stars, to Arthur, who's departed, to Artemis, to Josie, he hasn't actually departed this world, just the studio, to Alison, to Tavinder, and to Jagbir, who arrived at the very end. Hopefully we can hear from him next week. And to take us out, we've got our theme song, if I can make it work. Here we go.